there, this is John Anthony Francis Wilcox, and these are 6 powerful Deep Purple Mark III songs. As always, I'm going to cough, but as always, you can find the links to these songs in the comments section below this video. So what do I mean by Mark III? Well, this is the 3rd iteration of Deep Purple. The original was Ian Paice, Jon Lord, Ritchie Blackmore, Nick Simper, and Rod Evans. Mark II, they replaced Nick Simper and Rod Evans with Roger Glover on bass and Ian Gillan on vocals. So after they had recorded the album Who Do We Think We Are, which had a hit in Woman from Tokyo, things had gotten really rough between Ian Gillan and Ritchie Blackmore. And so Ritchie Blackmore wanted Ian gone, and they thought it was time for something fresh. So while he didn't particularly have problems with Glover, they let him go as well. And they replaced them with David Coverdale on vocals and Glenn Hughes from the band Trapeze, who used to be an opening act for Deep Purple, on bass and vocals. So it was also sort of a new era with dual vocals in that way. So they started recording in 1973, and Mark III lasted for exactly 2 albums, Burn and Stormbringer. And there were problems already brewing. By the time we got to Stormbringer, Glenn Hughes was trying to put a lot of soul and funk into a hard rock band, and Ritchie was none too pleased with it. And Hughes was also doing massive, and I must say massive amounts of cocaine, and that kind of didn't help. So after the tour for the Stormbringer album, Blackmore left and started a new band with another opening act, Elf, with the way talented vocalist Ronnie James Dio, and that became initially Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, or Blackmore's Rainbow, and then just became Rainbow. So, but I get ahead of myself, and I should say also, after Ritchie left, I'll get into that after the 6th song. So, song number 1 is Burn, from the album Burn. And to me, on one level, this is one huge, incredibly difficult drum solo from Ian Paice through the entire song. He's flying. It's a song about a witch. And lead vocal is Coverdale with some other bits by Hughes. It's a very strong piece. Great solos from Blackmore and Lord, to be sure. Frenetic pace, unbelievable playing, great vocals, great everything. And it is song number 1, Burn. Song number 2 is Stormbringer from the album Stormbringer, which was the 2nd of the 2 albums. And it's got an interesting riff. It's another powerful jackhammer of a song. I'm never quite sure what it's about. I believe that the name Stormbringer was a sword in some fantasy novels. I think they were they the Elric character, perhaps. But it's a dangerous character. Stormbringer coming, time to die. Slide solo from Ritchie, and for half of it, and then another proper solo again with that. Great playing from everyone again. Coverdale on lead, Hughes on harmonies, some fine stinking bass playing on there. Song number 2, Stormbringer. Song number 3 is You Fool No One from the Burn album, which I think is probably in my mind, I see it as the strongest ensemble piece. Everyone shines on this. Everyone. Starting out with that drum riff, Richie coming in on, Blackmore on some great guitar, Hughes on bass, Lord on keys, harmony vocals from the outset by Coverdale and Hughes, and then they take turns, Coverdale then Hughes, Coverdale then Hughes on lead. And again, smoking solos. There's hot playing on these albums. But that is song number 3, You Fool No One. Song number 4 is The Gypsy from the Stormbringer album. A sort of slide kind of riff by Ritchie. A very kind of slower, low-key, exotic song. And I love the mood. I love the playing. One of Coverdale's best lead vocals, I would say. Very strong. It's just a very strong song. And I would say one of the more overlooked Deep Purple songs. So that is song number 4, The Gypsy. Song number 5 is Sail Away from the Burn album. And Sail Away closed side 1 in the old, your old album days. And it's another kind of, I'd say it's really pretty much a prog song. And again, moody, exotic, strong, slow burner of a piece. I seem to remember this being one of my friend Neil's favorite Deep Purple songs, and it's a great choice. So, what can I say about it? Again, it's just quality through and through. Nice fade on it. I love Hughes's bass on it. It really, definitely, you see what he added to the band. Great piece. It is song number 5, Sail Away. And we finish with song number 6, Soldier of Fortune, which is the song that closed out the Stormbringer album. Kind of a hint of things to come for Ritchie Blackmore, skipping way ahead, because nowadays Ritchie, as you may or may not know, has a band with his wife Candice Knight called Blackmore's Night. And I think almost every time I've seen them live, they did their own version of Soldier of Fortune. It's a lovely piece, and it's, I don't know, it's very melancholy, and has a really kind of, it just seems to me to focus almost entirely on Coverdale and Blackmore, supported, musically by everyone else, but it's really them. And it's a strong piece and a good way to close out these 6 songs. It is song number 6, Soldier of Fortune, from the 6 powerful Deep Purple Mark III songs. So, I was going to get to this earlier on, but let's get to it now. So after this album, which Blackmore was very vocal about not liking, they did a tour, and then he was out of there, as I said. So his replacement was I believe he played in the James Gang, and he did some fusion stuff. A wonderful album called Teaser. It was a guitarist named Tommy Bolin. And they did an album called Come Taste the Band, which would have been the one and only Mark IV album. And if Hughes was really doing the cocaine, Bolin, while a brilliant player, bringing a very interesting, more fusiony but still rock and roll sound, brought a million drug problems. And so they did a tour that kind of fell apart, and he was very inconsistent live because he was, I will politely say, very altered. So after their last gig, It's infamous that John Lord sat everyone together and said, "That's it. It's the end of Deep Purple." And it was for a while. So that was in the tour finished, I believe, in '77, if I'm recalling correctly, '76, '77. And initially, Richie was obviously doing Rainbow. Lord and Pace hooked up with their old pal Tony Ashton, who was in the band Family and Ashton, Gardner and Dyke, and he worked on John Lord's wonderful First of the Big Bands album in '74. And they formed what was originally going to be called Lifespan, I think. But anyway, it became Pace, Ashton, and Lord. And they did one wonderful album called Malice in Wonderland. Meanwhile, Coverdale started to do some solo projects, which eventually evolved into Whitesnake. And Hughes, I don't know what he did for a while. He went on to do stuff again with Pat Thrall, they had the Hughes Thrall band and stuff. But anyway, around 1980, original vocalist Rod Evans, who, by the way, if I hadn't mentioned this in the past, went on to do some albums, wonderful psychedelic albums with the band Captain Beyond. The first two albums, I believe it was. Anyway, he got kind of roped into doing this fake Deep Purple live act, doing, songs he had no part of, doing Smoke on the Water and things like that. And the band caught wind of this, and they sued everyone involved. So it was the Mark II people with Gillan and Glover. So they had that lawsuit, and Rod Evans, rather than lose his shirt, ended up losing his shirt because he gave up his rights to all profits off of back catalog sales of his era of Purple. But the others, it set the stage and planted the seed for them all to get back together, which they did to record an album that they released in 1984, Perfect Strangers. And that era lasted for a bit. So that's all we got, folks. These have been 6 powerful Deep Purple Mark III songs, and I thought I'd give you a little front and back end background on them. I hope you enjoy them. They're great, hard rock and roll, good stuff. You'll enjoy them unless you don't. Let me know one way or the other. I love you all. Bye bye.